Going on, Hypno fam? I am thrilled to dive into today's topic. This is what I want to do is teach you how to utilize the notion that the presenting problem is not the real problem, because we could say that till we're blue in the face, and it's such a powerful concept. And sometimes when we slow down and really think through what that means, our smoking cessation results can go through the roof just by taking that notion very seriously. I've outlined some things you'll see in the description here, topics we're going to go over. But we're starting from the premise that every single smoker that's ever smoked or that smokes today can stop and never smoke again. So we're starting with that absolute universal truth. Okay, so that's how we know immediately that it could never ever be the real problem, right? Now, getting or helping a client figure out how to do that, this is where the challenge comes in, and this is where we have to develop our skills and focus our efforts to be able to help people quit smoking as effectively as possible. And in my experience, when we work this way, the results are much more long-term and rich and powerful for people, because they've taken on a new level of responsibility, commitment, transformation, all that different stuff, right? All the things that are fundamental to creating any change in our lives. That being said, let's dive into the content. The first item I want to talk about is the whole cart isn't the horse, or the cart isn't the horse, right? Cigarettes are like the cart. We can see them, we can blame them, a client can obsess over them, but the real issue is the horse pulling the cart. In this case, the horse would be the emotions, the habits, the beliefs, the different drivers that a client's going to articulate to you as to why they can't quit, which is not true. We've already talked about that earlier, right? They can quit, but they're going to use this language of can't. And as Kevin Doherty says, can't means won't, right? So keep that in mind. I love that little gem from him. And clients think they need to quit smoking, right? But our job is to stop the horse in its tracks. We want to disconnect the cigarettes from the unconscious patterns pushing that cart forward. Okay, to play with that metaphor. So think about it that way, right? The cart and the horse are separate. Horse is pulling the cart is the cigarettes. We got to work with the horse. And so that's helpful, hopefully. Now, cigarettes are neutral. This is a really important notion, and it can be highly empowering for a client because there's so much information about the chemicals and how powerful they are. But let's explore this in a little bit more detail. So if I left a pile of cigarettes on a client's desk, it's not going to light itself. It's not going to climb into the client's mouth, and it's not going to force the client to inhale. Right? Cigarettes don't make choices. They're inanimate, right? People do. Now, here's the kicker. Those choices do feel automatic. They feel unconscious. They feel outside of their control. The secret, when you show your clients where the control truly lies, they realize they've always technically had a choice, even if they didn't feel that way. And this can change someone's entire life. When they start to take responsibility that way, perhaps that's the wrong way to put it, but when they give themselves the opportunity to take control over areas they previously didn't, how could that not spark tremendous change in their life? They just need a couple quick wins and they're off to the races. You see this with my testimonials all the time. Next item here is the smoke and mirrors problem. So smoking is a magician's trick. Okay, it's the distraction, something flashy. It's convincing a client it's the issue, but cigarettes are just the smoke, the mirror that's reflecting back. That's what you want to pay attention to. Use to smoking as a mirror. It's going to reflect back their deeper fears, anxieties, beliefs about what the real problem is. And when you shine a light on that deeper issue, they see through the smoke and mirrors, they realize they can't change without the illusion of something holding them back. And there's a bunch of different ways to do this. When I'm teaching my 3 days, the one I just did, we do this through an entire exercise with metaphors. But I'm not teaching people metaphors. It's more about giving them an opportunity to explore the nature of metaphor via a really cool experience, because I'm clever like that. But it's really fun to notice how... So one way you might think about doing it is just maybe if you become aware of some of the metaphors in your life, start to think about all the different beliefs and understandings you assign to that metaphor. I guess it's a little bit, I would rather just have someone experience it. I do have a video up on YouTube if you want to watch one on self-hypnosis, and we spend the majority of that part going through a similar exercise. So if someone wants to see that, just DM me, I'll send it to you. But it's really powerful, and it helps you pick apart what your client is expressing to you. And by pick apart, it helps you find things you can use for leverage and to help develop a new understanding with that client very quickly. That's always a fun one. Next item we have here is cigarettes as the scapegoat. Cigarettes are the scapegoat, taking all the blame for stress, anger, boredom, any number of emotions. Sometimes they use them to calm down, to celebrate. Right? Folks will use the same thing to calm down when they're having a lot of pain in their life or discomfort. They'll use it to soothe themselves, and they'll also use it to celebrate these experiences of elation. That's pretty fascinating. How one substance, multiple uses like that. But it's not the cigarette doing the work, is it? It's the act of bypassing the emotions through some extent, that ritual, that very familiar activity they've been doing for years. We've been rehearsing, and that activity's always been there when so many other things in their life have probably changed, and that can be a bit daunting for people. So when we show them this, when we give them an opportunity to learn about it, it's not just about quitting smoking, but discovering new ways to meet those emotional needs themselves. So now we're going back to the horse, right? We're coaching that horse. We're getting them away from the cart. And so I do have a couple bonus items here I want to go through, and this is on choice and unconscious resistance. So I want to directly tackle the interplay between choice and conscious resistance. I think this is very important. If you really start to get this stuff, your session work should be a lot faster. So what you might experience is a little bit of confusion when a client's talking, but if you can kind of take a step back and think from this standpoint, it's confusing because they're not communicating from the standpoint of reality. It's an inner reality that they're sharing, right? I feel like this thing has control over me, but we know that's not the case. So now you have a context to be able to explore it and learn more. So number 6 here is the illusion of choice and the fear of failure. Okay, so clients are technically making a choice each time they light up. Every single time, but it doesn't feel like one. It feels like this automatic behavior, like the cigarettes are choosing them. Okay, but hidden behind the automatic behavior is this unconscious resistance, the fear of failure, not knowing who they'll be without the habit. I'm sure you came across that. Who will I be if I quit smoking? Or even the fear they can't trust themselves to live smoke-free. So once we help them face that unconscious resistance, the power of choice becomes clear again. And this is a process. One of my favorite things about it is that it seems like you might not be getting anywhere with people when you're going through this little experience with them. It's almost like there's all this amazing stuff happening underneath the surface. They're not even really consciously aware that they're moving into a more empowering place just by exploring the illusion of choice and the fear of failure with them. Okay, if you're not doing this in your session, start to play with it. It's going to make a huge difference for you. To the extent it shows up organically, of course. You don't want to go in there with a plan like that because everything will get distorted and weird and just not be as effective. Afraid to fail at quitting. This is a really big one. I think Guzzo calls that anticipatory failure. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to give credit to another Doherty metaphor, Kevin Doherty, the prison with an open door. He inspired that. Really good practitioner upstate New York, if y'all aren't familiar with it. You got to meet Kevin someday. So let's talk about being afraid to fail at quitting. So quitting smoking sometimes feels risky to the unconscious mind. What if they try and fail? What if the discomfort becomes unbearable? People sometimes choose not to choose. That's a very interesting place to be. They're choosing not to choose. It feels safer than failure. So now when we embrace this concept as a practitioner, this allows you to dismantle fears gently and show them that there's no such thing as failure, only becoming closer to freedom. Like one step at a time. That's why I like those metaphors that I use a lot of, the path and journeys, because then we can start to leverage any sort of a setback, discomfort, stressor in their life as an opportunity for them to learn and to slowly build that path to freedom to themselves. Now, when I say slowly build that path to freedom themselves, that might sound like this process takes a long time, but you've seen a bunch of my results, and we're talking about half hour, 45 minutes, and people don't smoke again. And I don't care about that. The reason I bring it up is because even though the path is slow, when we're dealing with the real problem versus the presenting problem, that is to say the horse versus the cart, the path's a lot shorter. So it doesn't matter that it's slower because we get there faster, because we're not traveling this crazy distance where we're talking about smoking in a way that's ineffective with that client. Hopefully that makes sense. It takes less steps to get there, and we can take our time with them because we're empowering that client to do a lot of this internal work and to shift their understanding in such a way that they can make better choices. And then finally, number 8 here, the habit that feels like survival. To smokers, smoking doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like survival. Woo, woo, woo. The unconscious mind links cigarettes to pleasure, relief, safety, control, all kinds of stuff. So if they can't stop, it's they don't believe they should. Right? They're not in a position where they believe they should. Yeah, this is great for us. This actually is very easy to work with. Versus I can't quit, I don't believe I should. We can play with that. We can start to understand it. Because on some level of awareness, they've tied this activity, this habit, this addiction to their identity or coping strategies, making them unaware of this opens a window to real freedom. I'm sure you've heard me talk about this in other ways, right? I'll often ask people that want to quit smoking, if you've been using this one activity to cope with all the stress in your life, why would your mind ever create an alternative coping strategy? You're just going to go back to this one. You haven't even given yourself a chance to do it. And so to the extent you don't give yourself a chance to do it, why would you? How would you? It'd be impossible, right? So we want to have very practical conversations about these things with people. Look, I'm not doing a lot of like hypnotic language here. Just walking through some very simple ideas, some very simple truths. And when we explore this with clients, we can move them along that cycle of empowerment a lot faster. So folks, hopefully this is helpful. I would love for you to comment your biggest takeaway below. If you have questions, DM me. I love those. I like to make videos about them, hop on lives and do it. And then if you are someone that wants to learn more about joining our mission, hit me up about that as well. I'd love to share that with you. All right. Bye for now, everybody. Take care.